Hello, Alchemist. What answers do you need from the Akashic Record right now? We're going to explore that. If you have already chosen your pile, check out the timestamps below. If not, doorway number 1 is the Foxfire Oracle. Doorway number 2 is the Archetype Oracle. And doorway number 3 is the Rumi Oracle. Choose your doorway, Alchemist, and let's begin the great work. Hello, Alchemists. What answer do you need from the Akashic Record right now? You chose this Foxfire deck. You know, Foxfire is like the Japanese kitsune. This deck is about the kitsune, which is the nine-tailed fox in Japanese folklore. And it is thundering and lightning outside, so if you hear that in the background, just consider it some nice ambient noise, right? You got call forth the waves. Already I'm getting a feeling of a level of mastery that the Akashic Records want you to know that you're approaching a level of mastery. And I want you to remember that a lot of times, right before you achieve a certain levels of mastery, you often feel like you're failing, okay? And so that's just something that I felt compelled to tell you and something to keep in mind as you're moving forward. Because this has a very, because we're talking about the Akashic Records, obviously the Akashic Records has everything in it from our daily lives to, obviously big spiritual truths that we're working with. So let's go ahead and take a look at your other cards. We have love, unconditionally loving, giving and receiving affection, falling in love, kisses. All right. Look at this water imagery here. Calling forth the waves. While this looks like, falling in love in a romantic sense, this movement here, she looks like a water bender or something. Right? The idea of learning to unconditionally love yourself and the skill set that you've been developing in your life. We will give so much grace and so much credit and be so proud of other people for what they've accomplished without loving ourselves. Now, for some of you, the Akashic Records wants you to know that if you are seeking human love, right? If you are seeking relationships, obviously we all want human love, but I'm talking about like a romantic relationship with a specific card, that through this mastery of your own inner world, especially your emotions, because water is emotions. This, water bending in this sense would be somebody who has, not that you repress your emotions, but you've learned to let them flow and to move with them. And that opens up the door for a true kind of love, an eternal love, a cosmic love, not just, the earthly loves where people are responding to each other through their own unhealed shadow and unhealed wounds. This is a higher love. This is a cosmic love. And this is the kind of love that can really, it's not that it can't come into your life earlier than this mastery. It's just that you might not have the skills or the ability to identify it. So it could be like, if either of the people are passing by and they're not in that place yet, even if there's a potential for this cosmic love, it might not come to fruition, right? Because people aren't ready. But, so yeah, if that's something you're looking for, that's it. I love this card. So, this is reminiscent of the scales of Ma'at, the Egyptian goddess who, when you die, she put your heart against a scale, not your heart against a feather on a scale. And if your heart is heavier than a feather, she throws your heart to Ammit, Ammit, I'm probably saying it wrong, Ahmet, Ammit, the crocodile god. But here the heart is also a money bag. So what I feel here is that there is such a treasure within your heart, but your heart can feel so heavy. And part of this process is flowing, using that water to flow out the weight in your heart. The treasure of your heart shouldn't be heavy. The treasure of your heart should make you feel lighter. even when heavy things happen to you, you let the heaviness sit there and you process it and you move it through and become light again. And that's what it's about. It's not saying you aren't going to be heavy and you aren't going to have moments. But the records are saying that your next step is to learn to be lighthearted, right? Learn to be lighthearted. And, you know, there's so many ways to practice this. I practice it by doing a meditation that I've said on here a few times, which is, my heart is an open, empty space where love flows through like water from the unending source, clearing away all obstacles. And I actually feel a waterfall of light flowing through my heart and sacral and solar plexus chakras, washing it away. And it really uplifts you. And the other one is, you know, focusing on your emotions without judgment. Those are both ways to get into this kind of energy that you're being called to. Unfurl the wings of forgiveness. So another element for a lot of you is self-forgiveness, as well as forgiving past situations. You don't have to forgive people who have harmed you. That's up to you, right? There's this thing where like, oh, you have to forgive people for yourself. You don't necessarily have to. You can forgive and not forget. You can not forgive or forget, or you can forgive and forget, right? None of those is right or wrong. It's whatever your path is. But there's this moment when you get into this kind of energy where you feel so disappointed in your past self. But remember, this was not obvious to your past self. Think of your past self as your inner child, right? Don't get angry at a child who hasn't learned something yet. Don't get angry at yourself because you didn't know better. When you know better, do better. This is the reminder that as you move through this process, gentleness with yourself is vital. And this too reminds me of the idea of sheltering, right? So like the idea of that your guides, right? Because we're talking about Akashic Records stuff. Your guides and stuff are watching you. So we have this bird, and we have all, like, I feel like that this is like dragonflies and moths, and I think that's it, just dragonflies and moths. They don't even look like butterflies, really. You know, dragonflies are representative of water energy into air energy. So emotions into the mind, because dragonflies start out in the water and then end up in the air. And even here you can see that she's balancing water with mind, because the water is flowing through the air, right? So it's an invitation to say you are protected, you are covered. Now you have the freedom to fly. And when you are in that safe space of protection, right, you can let your heart become lighter. You can be more at peace with your emotions. So let's read into this a little more. Magician, yes. Hanged Man. Look at all this major arcana energy. This is a quite important message for you. The High Priestess, the Ace of Wands, and Justice. Look at that. 4 out of 5 of these are major arcana. There's a big, this is not some kind of, oh, that's cool kind of revelation. This is a revelation that maybe you've even understood it intellectually for a long time, but you haven't been able to integrate it. And this is a sign that you are on the verge of integrating this. So being able to balance your emotions and then not rule you, and that's the key to you uplifting your heart and being in a lighter state, a state where you can forgive yourself, a state where you can feel more protected, and a state where you are open up to the different versions of love. You know, there's so many kinds. There's eros, human love, agape, you know, divine love. There's friendship love. There's caritas, charity love. So, you know, there's no one kind. Okay, so let's explore this a little bit, and then I'm going to pull, well, I wanted to pull, yeah, I'll pull a Cosmic Jester just to see if there's anything kind of hidden that we missed. Okay, so with the Magician, it is calling for you to balance all the elements within you, right? And next to the Hanged Man, it's saying that the way that that happens is to get to kind of, how can you look at this through the eyes of heaven, through the eyes of angels, through the eyes of your higher self, especially with this high priestess here. So this definitely has to do with your inner world. And magician and high priestess, you know, you have the balance here of forces. And so, yeah, I would recommend, like I said, I feel like this is like a, not that it's exactly an aha, it's not a tower moment, right? There would be the tower here if it was a tower moment, or something like the Ten of Swords if it was something that was going to be super dramatic. It's more like you'd been working on this slowly but surely. And then at some point, it's just going to make so much sense. And when it makes sense and when you integrated it, it's going to make such a huge difference in your life. And like I said, that the caution is make sure that you're kind to yourself. You didn't know what you didn't know. Because this is a new start. You know, aces are always about opportunities. So when this comes to pass for you, don't get bogged down in this. Make sure you're moving forward. That way you can keep your heart lighter than that feather. Because with justice here, we have another scale. So it's emphasizing that the Akashic Records are saying the thing that needs the most healing in your life is that things have gotten very heavy. And it's time to balance the scales and learn to balance it with some lightheartedness. I'm going to pull a card from my own trickster deck called the Cosmic Jester. Anyway, let's go ahead and pull this card and get back into it. The antelope does not make excuses for the lion eating it. There's definitely a feeling of past habits or attitudes that you're going to feel like you need to forgive yourself for, but really you didn't know better because it's how you were taught. And so you probably made excuses for the people who taught you this. And you might be struggling to forgive yourself, but you might also be struggling to forgive them. And now's the time to say, if you want that light heart, it doesn't matter if you forgive them or not. It's about letting it go either way, right? Letting it go either way, because it's not serving you or your highest good. This is the message I have for you today, Alchemists. Thank you for doing the great work, and I very, very much appreciate you being here. Hello, Alchemists, and welcome to your initiation through doorway number 2. What answers do you need from the Akashic Records right now? So what message from the Akashic Records right now? This is the Archetypes deck. I'm just having a day here. It's storming. Fighting off mosquitoes because it's 1,000,000 degrees outside in the deep south. Oops, cards are jumping today. Let's go ahead and take a look at your archetype. Agape. Oh my God, this can be maybe one of the most universal spiritual. This is definitely a deep spiritual growth card for you. So agape is the unconditional, the love that is beyond understanding, the absolute love of, some people might call it like Christ consciousness, some people call it Ein Sof, the Tao. It is the love that passes all understanding, and it is the love that you feel when you're just feeling pure love and not expecting anything in return. It cannot be limited by things like romance or even friendship love. Friendship and romance love can be expressions of agape, but agape is such deep love that is indescribable, and it is unknowable, but you can still feel it. So if you're getting a message about agape from the Akashic Records, it means that you have been spiritually growing to a point of ecstatic love. And what a beautiful message for you today. I cannot wait to get more into this with you. And I would say, ask yourself, like, where in your life have you ever felt what you think was agape? What did it feel like? What was that moment like, or those moments like? Have you felt agape from other people? Have you just felt agape from the universe itself? Have you just had that moment where you're staring out over the ocean or over the mountains or something and just got this sense of awe mixed with ecstasy, mixed with peace, mixed with a love so great that it brought you to tears, blissful tears. And if this pause resonating with you, I bet the answer to that is yes. And this is a time for you to reflect on that. Closed off, guarded, resistance, pride, defensive, wounded warrior. Okay. So with this guarded, closed off card next to agape, I would say you have felt that before, but you probably got bogged down with daily life. You probably maybe went through a really difficult situation, whether that's a relationship or a job or, something to do with your home life or something that caused you to, obviously you want to set healthy boundaries, but it went beyond healthy boundaries, right? Where you kind of shut down and maybe numbed out. So the Akashic Records are inviting you to reconnect. Figure out where you need to hold boundaries and where you need to open your heart back up. You can even hold boundaries with other people, but reopen your heart up to that universal love. This combination is reminiscent of Dark Night of the Soul, which is where we feel like we have felt the love of that everlasting agape love, and then it felt like it was taken from us and that we're having trouble. And it almost feels like you're being punished, but I promise you're not. You're never punished by losing agape. Agape is something that's always there. We just lose alignment with it sometimes when things happen in our lives. And there's nothing wrong with, that's the way life works. So you are the instrument of love. You are the song that sings love. You are not bound by this. You don't have to wait for some external force to show you agape. You don't have to wait for some specific event. You just have to start playing your own music, being your own authentic self again. Not the one that got buried in all sorts of shadow stuff. Not the one that got buried in boundaries that went too far because you were hurt so badly. Those boundaries are important, but closing yourself off, isolating yourself, that can be counterproductive, right? And so, and the funny thing is I say all that, but you can also, be kind of a hermit or a hermitess. I always call myself a hermitess. And still feel this beauty and wholeness. But most people like to have other people around quite often. I'm the kind of person, I do socialize, but not a ton because I need a lot of alone time. I call it domestic monasticism. Like, that's just a fancy way to say that I get overstimulated and need to stare at a wall for 4 hours. But either way, so there's no specific way this has to manifest. Remember, but the idea is that agape is something that is already there, already present in you, and that sometimes it can be hard to see. Fall, fail, fly. Oh my gosh, this is so perfect. Failure is not actually failure, right? Failure is a human construct because failure implies that there is some specific thing to be gained. And in the eyes of the cosmic, you looking bad at a work meeting or a relationship failing is a blip in the eye of eternity, right? But the funny thing is that does not diminish how it feels, right? That does not diminish it. It is both everything and nothing at the same time. But what that does give you is an invitation to feel it fully, to accept it fully, and then to let it go and rise above. So it's saying, in the past you felt this, and then you felt like you lost it, fall. You felt like you failed. You felt like you did this. But now this is your invitation to fly again. Or maybe even realize you've been flying the whole time. Because everything that happens is a prism of the divine, is an aspect of the divine. So even the hardest struggles you go through, people like to say it's part of the divine plan. I'm not saying anything like that. I'm saying more like, if everything is divine, if you believe in non-duality, then every experience is an experience of information for the divine love, and a chance for the divine love to show you infinite grace. And therefore, you as a reflection and as a microcosm of the divine love, showing yourself this level of grace and love, the level that you've shown to other people and that got you very hurt and that caused you to become defensive and feel like the wounded warrior, right? Now remember, we're talking very esoteric metaphysical concepts here because we're talking about the Akashic Records, right? Yeah. We have Eight of Cups followed by Page of Swords and the Star and the Tower. Interesting. And Six of Swords. So here on the ends, we have two cards about walking away, about moving away. And both of these cards to me have a sort of a feeling. So we're talking about mind and emotion. They both have a little bit of a somber feeling to them, like almost like you have the Tower moment that happened. So with Page of Swords, it's like you were trying to use your mind to fix these problems, to cut through these problems. But you felt really clumsy about it, right? The agape you felt was that agape that people have before they're tested so hard by the world. And, you know, it's still there, but then we grow hard to, because we grow a shell around ourselves. And so that's how it felt to you. But then the Tower came. It was the moment when you felt lost, when you felt abandoned by the divine almost, right? This is definitely dark night of the soul territory. But remember, this is the necessary breaking that opens up what has been limiting us. So like if you are closed off or overly guarded and you no longer feel agape, but you long to feel it again, you're going to end up in a situation where you have to shatter old ideas that you're clinging to, right? And from that comes the Star. Of course, the Star is the card after the Tower. And so because the Star is coming before here, I'm getting a feeling of like, almost like a cycle. So this peaceful energy you had before, then the Tower hit, and now this peaceful energy is coming back to you because of the way these cards are reading. But it's almost like these three cards all have a sort of a connotation of walking away or restarting after being wounded. And Rumi says the wound is where the light enters. And, you know, obviously I'm talking about metaphorically, metaphysically here. That sometimes, well, I always say this thing where we rise to the level of our own wounds, right? And so if you have a certain pattern or wound, you're going to act in accordance with that until you learn better. And it's going to repeat the same pattern. Jung says something along the lines of, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will dictate your life and you will call it fate. But really, it's just the amalgamation of decades of patterns repeated over and over again. But you're walking away from that because this draw to agape, to being yourself, to flying, is so grand that you were willing to go through as many Tower moments as possible to get there again. So this was a powerful, heavy, deep message for you from the records. Let's go ahead and pull one of these Cosmic Jester cards from my own deck. This is a kind of trickster energy. Oh my goodness, look at that. Jumped out of the card. The moon wants to remind you that cycles aren't failures. The moon wants to remind you that cycles aren't failures. So it's okay. I was saying this was like a cycle where you keep going back and forth. That's okay. But I do feel like you're coming up to a stage where the cycle is going to be more elevated. Okay? And that's fine. This is a wonderful message for you. I'm so proud of everything you've done. And that feeling is not gone forever because it's never, ever gone. We just lose the ability to see it sometimes. So don't fret none. It's still in you. All right, continue the great work, Alchemist, and I'll see you soon. Hello, Alchemist, and welcome to your initiation through doorway number 3. What message do you need from the Akashic Record right now? We've gotten into some deep stuff today, so I'm really excited to see, especially because you chose the Rumi deck. Oh, talk about getting dreamy. Talk about getting into some deep spiritual concepts. Let's see what is going on for you. All right. I surge on the uprising wave of love. Oh, yes. You know, the second pile I drew agape, which is that universal love that passes all understanding. That this is that again, but it's such an active version, because Sufism is like, we're talking about ecstatic love here, and ecstatic love is loving and dancing and appreciating every aspect of love, even the aspects that we as humans might interpret as being, because of whatever cultural or societal stuff that we might interpret as not being love. We have a very, very limited definition of love, just like we have a very limited definition of normal, or a very limited definition of of success. And all these things are limited by the time, the place, the culture, the generation that you're in. So to rise, to surge on the uprising wave of love, you've probably started feeling this loving presence in your heart and your soul. And likely you started feeling more love and compassion for yourself for the first time in your life. Feminine energy, yin. Intuitive, nurturing, creative, wounded, insecure, victim. So I guess that would be the shadow side of it. You're tapping in to this yin energy. Your creativity is what is going to surge you in that love. I've talked about this numerous times before, but how art and the creative flow, we treat them like they're rewards for doing hard, society-approved work. But really, that is not optional. That is what feeds the soul. And if you don't feed your soul, I love this card for this, because this book is like writing, creativity, and all this. But then it's like, if you don't get this, you can get sucked into darkness. You can get sucked into sadness. And so you actually have to fight against these societal norms and programmed ideas of what value is and what success means, in order to actually, because like, honestly, the system is sort of designed to keep you away from this ecstatic love, right? It's meant to keep you distracted, because money is the thing. It's not your spirituality. It's not your health. It's not your mental health. It's not your spiritual health. It's money. So many countries around the world, most countries, they measure their success on GDP, not on the happiness of their citizens. So if the whole system is about money, then it's not about love. Remember who you are. Oh, you are that love. Remember, this is an invitation to dive into your creative energy. I also feel with this, like, that you are naturally a nurturer and intuitive, but that might kind of got numbed out because of being exposed to so many societal things that you have. This is an invitation. The Akashic Records said you are this big, huge, eternal, beautiful being that has manifested here to chill out for a while. And you're like, this isn't chill at all. Oh my goodness. But, you know, I feel like we have lessons to learn here and different things. But we're also here to have fun, to feel that love, to be reconnected to the all, to Ein Sof, to Tao, whatever you want to call it. So here, with this nurturing, the imbalance may have come that your creativity got blocked because the nurturing became forgetting to nurture yourself, over nurturing other people, and forgetting to nurture yourself. And your creative outlet is such an important thing. And that can literally be anything. Some people it's gardening. Some people it's writing. It can be traditional arts like art, painting, writing, da da da. It can be unconventional things, like I said, like building ships in a bottle, or like I said, gardening or cooking, like whatever it is that makes you get into the flow state and remember who you are. And the more that you interact with that state and the more you interact with that flow, the more that you will be open to feeling that ecstatic love in your life. We have the hold on, I'm going to have to do this. We have the 5 of Pentacles, followed by all the naked people on the Judgment card that I have to cover up. Followed by the Fool, the 2 of Swords, and the 6 of Cups. Okay, so the energy here is a movement from a scarcity mindset to freeing yourself. Freeing yourself. Judgment being the transmutation of the scarcity mindset. Because the scarcity mindset in the 5 of Pentacles is specifically about having a scarcity mindset 3 steps away from, you're right outside sanctuary, but you won't even look up and see, right? And so with that, judgment is the transmutation of seeing it clearly. It's the reckoning moment of saying, wait, I am that love I've been seeking. I am that raw creative force of the universe. I don't have to do the same meditations. You can do whatever you want, but I'm just saying, like, there's no specific recipe for what I need to do. There's no specific path. The path is pathless, right? Because everyone's path is different. Other people can give you ideas, right? But your path is unique, and it should be, right? If everyone walked the same path, what would the universe learn? Because we are all different, manifestations of the same universal consciousness. So if that's the case, then if we all did the same thing, we as a coherent non-duality being, right, would not be really learning anything. So with the Fool card coming up here, the abundance for you comes from taking a lighthearted approach to your creativity, regaining your child mind, especially with the 6 of Cups. So in Taoism, there's this concept of, when you're a child, you're ignorant, but you're pure of heart, right? Because you don't have negative intentions. You just see the world as it is, usually a lot more clearly. But because you haven't learned any of the societal norms or what's right or what's wrong, you can kind of flail around in ignorance, right? And so then you have to go get an education. But when you get the education, your mind ends up being filled with a lot of great ideas, but also a lot of ideas that bog you down. And a lot of times people get so tied up in the academic, and I don't purely mean academic, I mean this in a spiritual way too, but in these concepts, like, I need to read one more book, I need to try one more practice, I need to do that they forget the point, that the whole goal was to get back to child mind. But the child mind that comes after education, when you discard the things you don't need, but you've learned the concepts, brings you to a place of pure intuition. So that that intuition is that flow of love, right? So if you feel like you've been at a standstill for a long time, look up and see. It's that time to remember who you are and get back in touch with that kind of a childlike wonder and energy. So I'm going to pull a card here from my own Cosmic Jester deck. I am selling these now. I don't really make any money off of them, just a couple bucks, but I wanted, this is my creative outlet and my spiritual outlet. Are they pressing your buttons? Move the control panel. For this, I feel like it doesn't just have to do with a specific person. Could be. I think it has to do more with society is always trying to press your buttons, right? Because the whole, like I said, most societies, which are based on getting people to buy stuff, right? A happy person isn't spending a lot of money. A happy person is on this wave of love. A happy person listens to their intuition. But if they can throw an ad at you that makes you feel bad about yourself, if they can throw an ad at you that keeps you in the scarcity mindset, you're going to buy, right? And so the Akashic Records want to remind you that you have autonomy to get into your very creative energy, to remember who you are and get back to this playfulness, right? This playfulness. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. I'm just honored that I can share these messages with you. And I will see you next time, alchemists. You're doing a great job. Please continue the great work.